Are we live? Are we live? Are we live? I think we are live, so I'm just going to assume that we're live because I see and I hear all the comments of people telling me that I got to stop saying, Are we live? Are we live at the beginning, especially that slippin' Jimmy Nichols. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Speaking of the Devils YouTube show, NJ.com's YouTube destination for all things New Jersey Devils. I'm your host, Ryan Novozinsky, joining you from the media room right here at the Prudential Center, the site of the Devils' 4-1 victory tonight over the Minnesota Wild. The Devils stay scorching hot. They've won 6 games in a row. They are 6-1-0. The penalty kill has killed off 21 straight penalties. The Devils are a wagon. The wagon watch is over. They are just officially a wagon. And let's be honest here. This is probably the best the team has looked since that 22-23 season when they went on that ridiculous 13-game winning streak. In fact, I will argue and say this Devils team looks better than that team that went on the 13-game winning streak in 22-23. But we'll dive into that a little bit more after we get through the notes, because I'm sure some of you will ask about that. So let's get started here, shall we? Let's go dive in period by period again, and this time we're actually even going to start in the pregame notes. Okay, we had some dramatics to start the game. Cody Glass obviously being out with an upper body injury. Keefe he didn't sound like it would be. We didn't anticipate that Cody Glass would be out for too long, which is a good sign because that third line obviously was rolling together. The pairing of Gritsuk and Cody Glass and Connor Brown has been a really good pairing so far, really good trio so far. So the Devils went and they made a decision that a lot of fans were really happy about, and it paid off for them. Top six, Arseny Gritsyuk. The Devils fans finally got to see that tonight. Let's see how it all went down. Okay, so the first period again, I think that the Devils, you saw little spurts here in and here out where the Devils looked fatigued from that back to back, but I think they started out pretty strong. A bunch of missed opportunities at the beginning, and a lot of great opportunities at the beginning. Cotter wide open on the doorstep of Minnesota's crease. And those stone hands kind of hampered him from punching in that goal, which was pretty bad. But that was about as high danger as a chance could be. I like that line tonight. I think they had a lot of good opportunities, even with Mercer centering. Mercer's been on a roll lately, and he proved that versatility that you really want as a forward, right? Like I feel like Mercer at his peak should be a guy that's as versatile at his core, right? You want a guy that can play on the wing and at center, and obviously, preferably, he'd be on the wing on that second line with Nico and Timo there. But tonight, obviously, had to play in that third line, and I thought that they generated a lot. That was the best line tonight from the Devils. Um, let's see. Let's keep going through the notes here. Mercer again had a wide open net as well. Shot it way over. I wrote here, stop missing the damn net. Gustafsson was tumbled over too, so it could have been an easy opportunity for the Devils. I want to give a quick shout out too to the Devils forecheck this year. I mean, it looks solid through 7 games played. I think they're applying pressure. They're squeezing every last ounce of offensive zone opportunity that they can get. That's what's tilting the ice towards the Devils. I think this year is that they're more of an active forecheck team. I was talking in the press box with Slip and Jimmy Nichols there, and he made an interesting point that whereas Carolina has to rely on that forecheck because they don't have necessarily the number of stars the Devils do. They don't have a guy like Jack Hughes who can just be a dominant zone entry guy, and they have to almost like pounce on you and overwhelm you. The Devils don't necessarily have to be a team like that. But when they do blend that strong forecheck with their obviously strong offensive play, offensive zone play, that's what's making them sort of lethal to start the season here. Along with the penalty kill, which is just in the special teams in general, which has just been great. Shout out to Jack Hughes. Jack Hughes. Well, first of all, shout out to Jack Hughes most of these games. But that Jack Hughes, Gustafsson, I think, was the one that tried to clear the puck, and he cleared it with authority. Jack Hughes smacks the puck down, and that was no small feat from him. It was almost like baseball-esque, right? Like that puck came out of there. with some force there, again with some authority. Jack smacked it back down, kept the possession in the Devil's zone. They didn't end up scoring there, obviously, but what a great play! I mean, I wrote it down here. It's really hard to find something that Jack Hughes is just bad at this year. Besides maybe falling, besides maybe getting a little too creative sometimes at the blue line and coughing up the puck. There are not many things to knock Jack Hughes on this year. Um, so that was obviously a thing of beauty. And then we get the first goal. We get the Paul Cotter goal. The third line again rewarded for some beautiful passing there early on, and a lot of great scoring chances they had early on. And on this goal especially, they were all involved. You had it was Mercer got near the wall, dished it to Brown along the wall, and then Brown throws it between two Minnesota defenders who both had active sticks. And it was really, tough to get it through there, but he manages to do it and get it to Cotter, who punches it in at the crease. Um, just impressive stuff all around from that line. So definitely positive signs going forward. It's positive signs because it looks like the Devils, at least early on here. Keefe wants the lines to stay consistent, and there's no doubt about that. Um, but on a night like tonight, second half of a back to back against a really good team, it's nice to know that even keep and in some pretty bad circumstances where you have Cody Glass going down before the game, and it was kind of a game time decision for the Devils to not have any chemistry really between these lines, and to still have a pretty, pretty good game. I would say three of the four lines had pretty good games. Is just a positive sign to see, and really, it's a sign that I'm going to use this mature narrative that just keeps getting spout in and out every single day that I'm here. But I hate to use it because it sounds like a cliche now. But this team really is just really mature this year, and that's another sign of it. I thought Nemec had a really strong game tonight. There was one play, I think it was the Boldy goal, where he and that's later on. That was in the third or second or third or something like that, where he should have just. He should have collapsed there instead of doing what he did there. I don't really even know what he was trying to do to try to stop Boldy there, but obviously he charges the net and has a really great wrist shot there. But going back to the first period here, I thought Nemec, and even overarching, I thought Nemec had a pretty strong game, one of his most complete games that he's had this season. There was like a 3-on-1 chance late in that third that Nemec was able to stop. And just played some really great defense there. So positive signs from Nemec there. That on that Boldy goal, I thought that was the one low light from him. And then that third line, just another to wrap up the first, just that third line did really great. Let's see, keep it going with the notes, and then we'll get right into the questions here. That I'm sure the chat is just on fire right now, so I'm really happy to see that. Brendan Dillon getting a goal. My gosh, I mean, before that, Jack Hughes opened the second period with just the most Jack Hughes way possible. He steals the puck, gets a burst of speed through the neutral zone, breakaway, tries to go blocker side of Gustafsson, but was denied. Only thing missing was the goal there to stop the what would have been a very Jack Hughes-esque start to the second period. Brendan Dillon, 2-game goal streak for Brendan Dillon there. And in all sincerity, this was a genuinely great goal from him. I counted 3 defenders that he rifled that shot from the point through, which is not easy to do at all. And I feel like for some reason these 2 goals didn't exactly feel like I'm not going to sit here and say that Brendan Dillon is going to go on some sort of offensive heater. Although Sheldon Keefe did say in the post game that he's hot right now, and he sure is. But definitely good to see somebody. It's just that depth scoring that we've talked about so many times over the years, and it's coming from all these different avenues. And Keefe said it best. When you have a really good team, you get goals like that. You get offensive spurts like this from players like that. Players that aren't expected necessarily to go on heaters offensively like that. That's the mark of a good team, and this Devils team sure is that. One could even call them great, but I think that I don't know if it's too early in the season to talk about this, but I mean the Devils really just are on fire and looking like one of the best teams in the league, especially here early on. I think the craziest part about this Devils penalty kill, just the next note here, there's still two teams ahead of them, and maybe that's changed since I last checked. But I know the Jets and Sabres were still ahead of them, even though they killed 21 straight penalties. Once again, forecheck tormenting Minnesota the whole night, taking back opportunities when the ice even started ever so slightly tilting towards Minnesota's way. Um, and then again, that penalty kill, it's just one of those things that going up against the Wild, who are the number one power play team in the entire league, too. That's no small feat for this Devils team to limit them. I think they were over 3 on the power play tonight. I would venture to guess because they're the number one power play team, they hadn't done an over at all this year. That penalty kill is not even, they're not even just getting, great. They're not even tenacious in their defensive zone. These that tenacity in the defensive zone is creating offensive zone opportunities for them, and chances off the rush. A lot of odd man rushes too on the penalty kill, which has been a sight to see. Nico Dawes tonight. Nico Dawes had a nice little game. He always seems to perform well under pressure for some reason. So I don't know what it is. We'll dive into that more later because I'm sure you guys have asked about Dawes tonight. But I always find him to be a curious case of somebody that can get up to the NHL and have just an amazing, like unbelievable first game, and then he kind of fizzles out after that. So you wonder what would happen if he ever just got like a full-time opportunity, like if he was just called up full-time under normal circumstances. I feel like every time he's been called up, nothing has been normal. So let's see. And then, we're going to finish off with just the third period notes here. I don't have too many because I think that was when the Devils just leaned on the gas. You got to talk about that Arseny Gritsyuk goal. First NHL goal for Arseny Gritsyuk. And you could just tell, mobbed by his teammates afterwards. You could tell they were thrilled for him, man. 4 seconds into the power play, no less, too. It was right off the faceoff. A Timo Meier faceoff win, by the way, and a Timo assist on the goal. And you can tell too the compete that Gritsuk had in that goal. He pounced right on that puck. That strong release on the shot, that's exactly as advertised, And I feel like this is coming from a player that really isn't as advertised. And I mean that in a good way. And Sheldon Keefe talked about this in the post game. He talked about, you thought that Gritsuk was going to come over and you just thought it was going to be the shot. You just thought he was going to be a shot and a guy that can just pot goals. No. He came over and he showed everything, but he showed that he could be, semi-responsible, 200-foot game-wise, but not, that's probably the biggest knock on his game. But I think he's semi-responsible in that regard. His passing was incredible. His vision was incredible. This is a guy that I don't think that the scouting reports necessarily leaned into those things. But for him to do that and to finally start scoring goals here is just something to see. But with that we're kind of wraps up the notes that we have here. Thank you again for tuning in. Let's get into the comments because we got 80 people in the stream right now. And we have a whole heck of a lot of people in the chat. I think you guys were even talking even before we went live here. So we'll start here with Tyler Seba. Dawes cannot hit waivers again. He is an NHL goalie. Yeah, again, we can just get right into this Dawes conversation. Dawes is such an interesting case to me because, again, this time around when Markstrom comes back, which I anticipate will be soon because by all accounts I've heard that it's just not a serious injury. Dawes is probably not going to need waivers this time around because he'll fit within the 30-day or 10-game window. It's a precarious situation for the Devils here because they have this goaltender that they have signed to a regular one-way NHL contract. But because of the two 35-year-old guys that you have and that you traded, pretty decent capital for, you kind of have to put him by the wayside. And oh, by the way, there's also another guy in Yegorov down the pipeline who's still at Boston University. that he's even better, touted to be even better than Dawes. But this is also an organization that has been trying to figure out this goalie situation for gosh, how you guys dealt through that rebuild. I'm sure you guys remember the old terrible goalie days. Um, it seemed cursed for a while, that goalie situation. So now you have an overabundance of goalies, and now it's an interesting question. I think he's an NHL goalie. I think that potentially here maybe this is a perfect storm for the Devils, where maybe they're able to add his trade value a little bit. Although a team might call their bluff by saying, "Hey, okay, fine, we won't trade for him. We'll just claim him when he goes on waivers." So it's intriguing to see. I don't I know that this organization is really high on Markstrom and Allen, and for good reason. And Allen, especially has been really strong this season. Markstrom not so much. Off to a cold start. So you know. Do you risk at some point, putting him on waivers, or again, you might not need it this time, but I just feel like Dawes is as you said, Tyler, an NHL goalie. Damn it, Evaldi says Merce Dog increasing his trade value. Okay, there we go with the trade value stuff. I don't know, man. At this point, you might have Mercer just straight up just stay on this team. I mean, he's off to an awesome start. 7 points in as many games for him. And I don't know if he got another one at the end there. I was kind of on the elevator, so I didn't catch that. But yeah, he's the first star tonight of that was selected by the team, and for good reason. He's off to a rocking start to this season. A guy that had a lot of questions about him after last season, after such a cold season last season, and not to mention the one before as well. But last season has a particular stain on it because of the missing a couple days of training camp. So interesting to see him off to a hot start. Rocco, what's up, buddy? My man. Hold on, horns down for Rocco. Devils may never lose again. At this point, yeah, I don't know. This is the best I've seen the team. I'm going to say this again. This is the best I have seen this team since that 13-game winning streak. And oh, by the way, I think they actually might be a little bit better. Okay, let's see. Dubzilla says, "Come on, Novo, you have to love this defense. The structure and discipline is just magic to watch." Where was that article you mentioned that Daniel wrote about Shaw and his effect? Yeah, Daniel Amoya works for the Hockey Writers, so you can follow him on Twitter. Someone put Daniel Amoya's Twitter in the chat. Duck Duck Gusev. I don't know if you're in the chat, but you probably are. Put his @ in the chat so that you guys give Daniel his flowers. He did a really good job. Not he pulse the team to get a gauge on the buy-in on Shaw, and you can really tell that. Very much so. Just with the results on the ice, but also with the words that they say. Dubzilla once again, great game by Dawsey. All the doom and gloomers hating on him need to let the kid grow. Again, a guy who always comes in the strangest of circumstances. A guy who came in and broke the outdoor stadium series, outdoor game record for saves, and then kind of turns into a pumpkin shortly thereafter. I've always been curious to see what Dawes can do with an extended shot. And we, I think Daniel, give another shout out to Daniel, asked Keefe in the post game, "Hey, why does Dawes always seem to outperform his AHL metrics in the NHL?" It's an interesting question, and the answer sometimes is, and I actually talked to Brodeur about this too in years past. The answer is some goalies are just better in the NHL than they are in the AHL, and none of them could really put an effable thing on it. Some people just perform better under pressure, and that's a sign of a guy that could be a really good goalie. I know the organization is still bullish on Dawes. I know they were clenching something whenever he was on waivers there for those 24 hours. That's from the conversations I've had around the organization during those 24 hours. It's interesting to see. He's an interesting case. That's all I got to say. Damn it, Evaldi says, "What do they even do with all the camera lenses that they have the players sign?" I do not know, but that's an interesting question. Maybe I will try to figure that out for you. Kyle Z2233 says, "Novo, once again, the winner of special teams in the game usually wins the game, and the Devils are doing a whole heck of a lot of winning in that special teams department this year, Kyle, with that, this penalty kill, which I haven't been able to track that stat down. the record for consecutive penalties killed is, but the one I found online was at 53. It almost seems unrealistic. I just burped right into the mic. I'm so sorry, everybody. The one I've been able to see is that 53 number, but yeah, I don't know if that's accurate. I have to get someone to fact check that. And I really got to go try to fact check that myself. Dubzilla 47, a guy who's been really great in the chat. So thank you. Shout out to you, Dubzilla. And we have 85 people in this chat. So thank you all for tuning in. And be sure to like and subscribe. Smash that like button. Please do. Dubzilla says they will not trade Mercer. They are counting on him growing into what they drafted him for this season, playing with Nico and Timo. Let's go, Merce. Yeah, I think that about sums it up. I don't think, I think for years you've seen, I know for a fact that a number of years ago, when, during that big Timo Meyer trade deadline, the Devils were very, very weary or leery of giving up Mercer in a potential return. I know there's a bunch of teams that really like him. Nashville in particular, I always thought the trade would be they would try to get Saros. Like before, this is pre-Markstrom. I always thought they would try to go get Saros for a package that revolved around Mercer, because I knew how much Andrew Brunette and Barry Trotz even really liked Mercer. They were really high on him, and so it never ended up happening, and I think for good reason. The Devils just wanted to hold on to him because they kept clinging on to hope that at some point when we get this kid playing his natural position, playing the wing, that he'll his game will level out. And I think his game is not only leveling out, it's finally on the upswing here for Dawson Mercer. Again, 7 points to start the season in 7 games. You can't ask for a better start from him. That's the first time he's done that in his career to start the season. So all very positive signs for Mercer. Damon Evaldi says the Devils are first in the league. There you go, Devils fans. Dubzilla 47. Pesci looks so solid. It's just awesome to watch. The entire blue line is, but he is just a great leader. The blue line really is, and it really starts there with Pesci. I thought that was, it's up there with one of the best signings that Fitzgerald's ever made. Just a really good penalty killer, a really good defender, and a guy that even showed a touch of offense the other night. Obviously, Dubzilla and Tyler is right. Dawsey will not clear waivers again. Have to make this decision soon. Very curious. I might try to poke around to see what the deal is with Dawes, because it's going to be an interesting decision that they're going to have to make. Obviously, this time around, they probably won't have to make that because he doesn't have to pass through waivers with the 30 days, 10 game thing. But we shall see. Gerald York says, high praises for Gritsuk from Keefe, and well-deserved. Gritsuk reminds me a lot of Panarin, except Gritsuk might be more complete. High praise from you there, Gerald York. Both wiry skaters with a great shot and vision. No, I see the mold for sure. And I think from what I read too, Panarin was a guy when he first came over. He was one of the guys that was able to emulate that or carry over that KHL production into the NHL and do it early on. Gritsuk's doing the same damn thing. We laugh, we talk about the the telegram stuff, and that's a good time. He's a quirky character off the ice, but he is as mature of a player, and as mature as a rookie, 24-year-old rookie, that I've seen, come over from a different league, from a vastly different league, having to adjust to different ice. It's really it's been something to see early on here in the season. Arseny Gritsuk's development and his mature game that I think permeates that locker room too. I think that they're feeding off him in a sense. The Devils are, because he's been a really good player so far. Brian Garfinkel says, missed the presser update on Cody. Yeah, Keefe did not sound too concerned about Cody Glass. He actually said he was a game time decision today. Said that he got injured, obviously last game, about halfway through the game, and missed some time there at the end. But no, he did not sound overly concerned. So I'm not overly concerned either, because Keefe has been pretty transparent. I have a term that I coined about Sheldon Keefe, which it's basically just he just speaks more honestly than I was kind of anticipating, but he also has these things where sometimes you have to read in between the lines. So the term that I've used to describe Sheldon Keefe and the way he talks in these pressers is Sheldonese. So I've been trying to learn, and in addition to learning Russian for these Gritsuk interviews, I've been trying to decode some of this Sheldonese because he's sometimes directed these pressers, and sometimes you have to decode a little bit. So it's been interesting to cover him so far. Um, Cranman says, I can't believe Dylan has more goals this season than the entire Rangers team does at home. LFG. Yeah. Look, again, I asked Keith in the presser afterwards. I said, like, what's going on with Dylan offensively? And he just let it off by saying he's hot. And then he went into a whole tangent about how great teams usually get, scoring punches from these guys, from guys like this. Rick Roma says winning the second game on a back-to-back, crazy times. Yeah, I'd have to go back and see what the record was last year, but I remember last time I covered these Devils, that was always their kryptonite. Like, and I know that they had that season with just an inordinate number of back-to-backs on their schedule. So you kind of, I mean, you could blame them, but you kind of can't blame them because that was just kind of an unfair thing from the league. But for that tide to turn this season has been refreshing to see. Dan Vivaldi gives an update there. Let's see, Craneman with the same comment. Sorry, we're rifling through some of these. Gosh, okay. Okay, let's see. Tom Fitzjesus, thank you for joining us live, Tom Fitzjesus. I saw your tweet before, so I'm really glad that you're able to get into the stream live, and that's great. Tom Fitzjesus says, "I'm just here for the Are We Live? Are We Live? Are We Live? Someone in the chat tell me if we are live." Okay, that's great, Tom. That's great. Gosh, we are so behind. Congrats on 1K. Sammy K says, "Congrats on 1K." Thank you for everybody for getting us to 1K. I really do appreciate it. It's been a meteoric rise for this channel, and we're having a lot of fun on these streams, I think. So appreciate. Shout out to all of you for that. Benjamin Resch says, "Are we live?" Yes, we are live. Swerve 95 says, "You mean my Minnesota Wild." There you go. I don't know what you mean there. I guess you're a Wild fan. Wild fans invading the chat, so that's awesome to see that we're touching all 32 fan bases from the NHL. Rick Roma says, "I'm going to write it here all season. I want a 3C over a scoring winner. Can't depend on Glass. Hurt already. Kadri, O'Reilly, Malkin, etc." O'Reilly to me is and Kadri, I think too, because forget who mentioned in the press box with me, but we were talking about this a number of games ago. Kadri's cap hit, especially with the cap going up, and if you can get some retention there, with the Flames starting the way that they have, it won't be as bad as it was in years past, especially with the cap climbing. I think that is a fascinating ad, and that would be one that I haven't given too much thought to, but now that you mentioned and you throw it out there, I think that is a really interesting deadline prospect there is Nazem Kadri. But Ryan O'Reilly too. I've been high on him for years. I think that would complement the Devils well. And I think you can poach them from one of these two teams, from a Nashville or a Calgary. So we'll see. James O'Hara, I love the Are We Live. Okay, I guess we have to get some Are We Live merch. If you guys would buy some Speaking of the Devils merch, I think we have to get to let me know in the comments if you guys would purchase any of that. I'm thinking we get Are We Live T-shirts, Speaking of the Devils hats, and I want a T-shirt or something that says, "I watch the game very well," or in quotes, you don't watch the game very well. I think if you guys would wear a shirt like that, let us know in the comment section below, and we will have those made. Direwolf says, "This team looks so good right now. Keep stacking points." They sure do, Direwolf. Swerve 95. You guys are only good until those. Okay, we're gonna keep going on with the chat there. Gosh, oh my gosh, the whole thing just glitched out. Larry Blumenfield says, "Hey, show some love for Nemec tonight." Yeah, I thought he had a really strong game in the The advanced numbers afterwards was looking at the game score charts and everything like that. They confirmed the eye test. It was just that one little mistake that he had on the Boldy goal, which I just didn't know. It was kind of curious to see what he was doing out there. But no, definitely a stronger game from Nemec. I thought he had a pretty complete game. Benjamin Resch said, "I was never a Palat believer, but he hasn't been terrible. Hopefully, helps trade value." I love when somebody that Devils fans don't want anymore. Oh, by the way, hold on. We have 67 people in this chat right now. 7. Sorry, had to do that. Had to get that out of the way. I'm gonna be mass exodus after that one. But yeah, no, I love when Devils fans like to say, whenever there's a player that's kind of on the block, that they're boosting their trade value, especially when the team is rolling right now, especially when these players are contributing to the team rolling right now. So that's been very interesting to see. That's been a common thread in this comment section. Bluebell F1, we're never losing again. Yeah, I mean, listen, at this point, I don't blame you for thinking that. This looks like a really strong team. Legend Killer 97 says, on the way home from the game, so pumped with how the boys played tonight. You wouldn't think we were playing in the second half of back-to-back. That was so noticeable tonight, too. I thought there were small spurts of where the Devils lost their energy. Again, I think I mentioned that off the top of my notes there. But it was around the time, I forget what penalty it was, but there was a penalty kill like in the second period. It might have been one of those weird Luke calls. Like I think it was that weird like Luke interference call. I don't remember if it was that, but Luke has been in the penalty box quite a bit this year. But I thought that was when the tide turned and the Devils, like before that, that's when the Devils were a little sluggish a little bit. They found their game again. They found their legs again right after that, and they did not hold up, obviously getting the 3-goal win. Matt Brown, Grits did not look out of place on the top 6, but for now the team is more balanced when he's on the third line. Yeah, that's the interesting that's the predicament that you have with this line, and it's a good problem to have when you almost have too much, too many skilled players that you don't know exactly how to balance these lines. But I'm with you. I think that third line is just so dominant. I like the showcase tonight, and I think that once Grits finally finds that complete game, and he's been doing, he's been showing strides of that. Once he can prove that he can hang with a line like Nico and Timo, a line that is so built through, especially with Nico, that 200-foot game. I think he's an interesting add to that line, and I think too, give him a shot with Jack at some point, because I want to see what the chemistry between Jack and Brad has been so unbelievable this year that if you add and if Gritsuk starts scoring in droves like we think that he can, add that to a Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt line where they're rolling and they almost are screaming, begging for a top 6 scoring wing to complement them. I just think that would be a heck of an ad for them. Gerald York says, "Do you think Grits is back to the third line when Glass is back?" I do, and just for all those reasons that I just said and that Matt Brown highlighted up there, I think that it's a more balanced team whenever you get that rolling. Just got here. Have we discussed 21 of 21 yet? What are you referencing? Am I missing something? I'm sorry, Manuel. I don't know what you're referencing there. Direwolf said the neutral zone play has been amazing too. Look, that's the little things that I think that have been implemented under Keefe that I've just been more impressed with than anything. Keefe's structure is so sound. Keefe's oh gosh, hold on. I'm sorry. I had to interrupt. Manuel, you're talking about the penalty kill. 21 of 21. Yeah, 21 straight penalty kills, 6 straight games of perfect penalty kill play. Yeah, no, we've discussed that a whole heck of a lot. Sorry. Back to Direwolf. The neutral zone play has been amazing. Yeah, no, it has. And again, that's been the thing that I've been most impressed about. Whereas the Devils before, I feel like that defensive zone structure and defensively throughout every zone, not just in the D zone. Obviously, you're talking about the neutral zone. I think that's been just a treat really this year to witness. And then, obviously we know they're a good team off the rush, and that's where the Devils' bread and butter is. These zone entries and Jack bulleting through the neutral zone this year has been something to watch. There was a point there in my notes there where I think just like 8 in a row were just notes about like lengthy notes about Jack Hughes, and that's something where when he's on, he's on. He has been on fire these first several games to start this campaign. Um, Bluebell F1 almost cried at that play. Not sure exactly what you're talking about. Probably the Gritsuk goal, I'm going to guess. Damn it, Evaldes just says face-offs. There you go. This is a great comment right here. Okay. Luciana says Jack's new shoulder is magic. Yes, it is. I mean, you can't help but be overly impressed by what Jack Hughes has been doing this year, and that shoulder must be just a bionic shoulder. Every person that I talked to, during training camp and what have you, mentioned that Jack Hughes' shoulder is stronger than before. And we do often find ourselves wincing up in the press box whenever he falls down or anything like that. It's just, that's just almost a PTSD thing. But it's been awesome to see the way it's really a sight to behold. What we're witnessing Jack Hughes do early on this season. Let's see. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna get a couple more here, then we're gonna wrap up the stream. I know you guys have a lot of questions. Don't worry, we will be going live. We're gonna go live again at some point this week, just because it's been such a blast. No, it's okay. It's okay. Sorry, I'm the one that's holding up the time here. There you go. That's our cue to leave. The maintenance staff is in here. Benjamin Rush says it's definitely a better team from last year. But I think they're used to Keith's game plans now. That's been a common theme that I've heard throughout a lot of the commentary, as well from some of the players, is that they feel more comfortable under Keith. It makes sense, obviously, going from a different coach and learning the system and finally having, some of these guys at least getting, full training camp, just second training camp under their belt under him. But perhaps more impressively is how these new guys that came in, who have obviously been off to just scorching starts to start this season, have been able to adjust so quickly. They feel like they've adjusted even quicker than the Devils did last season. So that's been nice to see. I want to give a quick note too before we wrap up the stream, and we'll talk about. We just want to talk about Stefan Noesen. So Stefan Noesen, after the game, I requested him to talk to him, and I spoke to him because there was that interesting Fitzgerald comment that Fitzgerald talked about Noesen at the beginning of training camp, and he said basically that Noesen was very reluctant to get surgery early on in the offseason. And the Devils wanted him to get surgery. They were kind of, saying, hey, you got to get surgery, get it early on so that you're back. From what Fitzgerald made it sound like Noesen was kind of headstrong in thinking that he could just rehab through it, and then he ends up having to get the procedure later on, and that's what sidelined him for so long until tonight. And he was part of that, pretty lackluster fourth line, which we didn't dive too much into tonight, but they were pretty bad. He said he responded to those Fitzgerald comments by basically asking me. He turned the tables on me and he asked, "Do you want to get surgery?" Because I asked him, what was the reluctance to get surgery? He said, "Do you want to get surgery?" And I said, "No." But in that moment, I wish I was thinking otherwise, because I would be thinking, yeah, if something was wrong, you would think you'd want to get surgery. I understand wanting to avoid it, and I understand his point. But then he gave a good answer afterwards, which I'll have something on that, hopefully tomorrow, on the print side of NJ.com. But yeah, no, I thought that was just an eye-opening answer. And good to see Noesen back. I think that, as time goes on, as he finds his legs a little bit, you'll start to see better showings from him and that fourth line once they start getting a little bit healthier, once this whole lineup starts to get a little bit healthier, and Sheldon Keefe can balance that. But that'll do it, everybody. Thank you once again for tuning in to Speaking of the Devils. It was a ton of fun tonight. Devils obviously get their 6th win in a row, and these wins have led to a lot of fun streams. So hopefully you guys will join us after Friday's game against, I think, the San Jose Sharks, which will be, maybe a trap game candidate for the Devils, or maybe they can keep the foot on the gas there. We shall see what avenue they go down. For Ryan Novozinsky at the Prudential Center, thank you, everybody, and have a good day, and we will see you next time.